Sabine helps us to close deals with ease, with ease. Success we declare. Selling with Sabine helps us to close deals with ease, with ease. Oh, where says mastery ignites, then dreams move from we fly. And the sales team was so.
Hi, everyone. This is Sabine Taylor, and I want to thank you for joining me on my first StreamYard recording, okay? I have never used the software, and I haven't recorded in a very long time in this type of situation. But, there's a first time for everything, and let me just maximize my screen. I thought that since I plan on recording more videos that I would give you a formal introduction on who I am. Again, my name is Sabine, pronounced Sabine. You heard it, I said it, okay? And I am a sales trainer, certified sales trainer. And you know what? I want you to go to my LinkedIn profile. I'm not sure if you can see my mouse moving, but at the very top, you should see in the URL bar, which is in the black section, linkedin.com, selling with Sabine. Okay. And the reason I want to take you there is because I feel anyone who's giving you advice, whether it's on sales, it's legal, it's accounting, it's education, they should show you their credentials. And speaking of which, I have a lot of credentials when it comes to sales. Okay. So, and I think you should know what makes me the authority figure, not the authority figure. There are plenty other experts out there that are just as qualified who can speak, excuse me, about sales. Okay. But what makes me, have the right to talk to you about sales is because I'm a certified sales trainer. I've trained thousands, like about 20,000 sales and customer service reps, starting from like 1997 to about, excuse me, 2003. So roughly about 1,000 averaging. Okay. Some years I'm training like 5,000 people or 3,000 people. In other years, like during COVID, I don't even know. I think I may have trained like 30 people or 50. I'm not sure, but it wasn't in the thousands. But if you average all like 20,000 by like, let's say 20 years or 17 years, it works out to be 20,000. Okay. So let's talk about my credentials. All right. So I got started in sales at 15. I started working in Jamaica, Queens, in a store that paid me like $2.75. Okay. So I worked for a retailer. Like I was 15 years old, getting paid under the table. Okay. So, they gave me a job. I took it. And I wanted to be fly in high school. So, I got my coin early on. And then I went to college. And I went to Clark Atlanta University and I took a sales class there. And I had to sell paintings B2B. And I was number two in my class. And I was number one in my first sales job too. I did not know I was good at sales, but I was very good at listening to people. I'm very good at being quiet and just actively listening. And that comes from me just being quiet as a child. I really didn't speak much because I didn't know how to speak because my parents were not from this country. So I was used to hearing them speak Patois and Creole, and I could not, speak English that well. Even though I was born in Brooklyn, okay, I did not have a strong command of the English language, but I had a strong command of mathematical principles. That I did. So moving on, I got a job after I graduated Clark working like in customer success and partner enablement. And I'm going to explain to you what that means in layman's terms. So if you've ever gone to like CompUSA when it was open, Circuit City when it was open, Best Buy, Walmart, Sam's, all of those electronic stores, or even Sears, they sold computer equipment, right? And a lot of those reps needed help understanding what did those computer equipments do and how they benefit customers. So I used to be a rep, going in the stores, putting stickers, helping merchandise. So working with managers, training their teams. So that's kind of partner Enablement. There are so many products in the stores, but each of those products have a manufacturer. And that manufacturer, like let's think of Samsung, right? Samsung phones. Well, they have a whole marketing and sales team that supports that store. Okay. So I did that for a very long time, for maybe about 7.5 years. Okay. Sweating a little bit. So pardon me while I quench my thirst. All right. Then after that, I got to be like a certified sales trainer working for a company. The reason I can't say the company is because sometimes these companies like, don't say our name. You know what I'm saying? You're not in PR. You don't work for us, so don't say the name. But you can always go to my LinkedIn profile and figure it out. Okay. So I worked for this massive company and I had to go through certification. And the certification for me was almost like a year and a half. Okay. And I had to my first foray into certification at that company was I had to learn how to train adults, how to speak to adults. They were like, okay, before you can even teach sales, we need you to understand adult learning principles. Okay. We need you to understand that when an employee is in your class and they raise your hand and say no, you never tell them you're wrong. Instead, you say, I see where you're going with that. Others have said that. So those are the kind of techniques that I learned when it comes to adults. Why was that important? Well, because of the company I work for, they tracked every dollar they spent on training. And they would tell us, hey, we spent $11,000 per employee to sit in your class, so you better make it good and you better not embarrass them. Okay. And we're going to teach you how to make it good and we're going to teach you how to make it a safe learning place. Why is that important? Because not every subject matter expert is good at explaining, is good at connecting, or is good at making learners, employees who are trying to learn about sales, feel safe. So I learned how to do that. Okay. So after I learned how to train adults, I learned how to do product training. Okay. So I worked for always in the technology space. So I'm always having to explain technology products. Okay. So I went through that training. And then I went through sales training where I had to go through a very formal certification, okay, where I had a master trainer. I had my colleagues giving me feedback in a very formal write up, okay, and I had to pass the test. And I have to say, in sales, the first time I took it, I passed it, and that wasn't the case for everyone. But I was really proud of that accomplishment. And the organization that I worked for had a very strong training reputation. I think at the time when I worked for them, they were number 4 in the whole country. Okay. And because I worked for that company and went through that training certification, I would say it made me a better salesperson. It made me more empathetic. And because of that, other opportunities opened. Okay. So let's talk about it. Well, then I end up working for another, you know, high tech company. And in that role, I had to service my former employee, okay, in a partner role. So I was a liaison. So what that meant that I had a series of companies that I had to go check on. They were partners, so they were reselling my employer's product. So a good example of this is like if you ever went into like Walmart, right? And you saw that they have Kellogg's, and then you saw like a similar product called Great Value, and it kind of looked like Kellogg's. Well, more than likely, Kellogg's was manufacturing it, but Walmart, worked out a deal with them where they could say Great Value. That's just an example. I'm not sure if there's any validity to what I'm saying, but that's just an example of what like resellers do. Okay. So in this last high-tech job, I end up having to write curriculum, write training assets. And I'm like, there's a lot of writing. And remember when I told you, I don't have such a great command on the English language. And I would say even now I don't. I've gotten better because I've gotten a lot of professional development, but naturally I'm more of a numbers person. So because of that, I enrolled at UGA, University of Georgia, and I enrolled in their instructional design program. And I have to say, you know, I got a lot of value in that program because I learned that adult learning is based off of early education principles. And in my class were all these K to 12 teachers and a lot of people from the military who I got, to work side by side with them as a student, peer, and learn from them. And that started to sharpen my confidence, okay? Because I wasn't that real confident in my writing. But what happens when you go into that program, you learn how to structure content. And what I was confident was my sales content, my sales ability. And so I learned how to structure the sales knowledge I gained throughout the years. So after that, I started writing curriculum, sales curriculum for my former employee. I wrote, like, when I left, I think I wrote like a 75-page facilitated manual. So that means that if anyone were like, if I left the company, I got laid off, but anyone who came over, maybe took my position or whatever, they would be able to look at the book I wrote and just run from there, because I, set it up that there's not a big onboarding ramp up, meaning they have everything that they need, everything's written out for them, and all they have to do is kind of review the material. I wrote like a facilitator guide and a participant guide. So one for the person who's given the training, and one for the participants, the learner, their employee who's going through the training. So I started to learn how to write. And I have to say, I learned that from going to UGA, because in that program, all the professors were PhD professors. And I really love that, because they came to the table with a depth of knowledge that expanded my mind on how to deliver content in a way that's utilized a lot by the employee. So that's another thing. Sometimes, you'll find that you'll create some training assets and employees don't use it that much because they don't find utility, they don't find value in it. So at UGA, I definitely sharpened my instructional design acumen, so to speak. Okay. So then after that, I decided I wanted to write my own book, okay, which is coming soon. It's under editing right now. So I'm really excited about that. But why did I tell you all of this? Is because I believe that when you are getting advice on the internet, you got to be careful, okay? Because the people with the audacity to get on stage and promote what they're doing, you don't know what their credentials are sometimes. Sometimes they'll share with you, and sometimes it's a complete scam. You want whoever you're going to give your time, and time is money, that they tell you their credentials. So I'm telling you my credentials, but go out there and look. Go in the internet. Go to LinkedIn. Go to my podcast, which is called Selling with Sabine. All right. And listen to what I've said. Okay. Some of these influencers throughout the years, I'm shaking my head. And sometimes I wanted to post a video and just scream at the top of my lungs. This is crazy what they're saying. But one of the things, when you work in corporate, you got to be very careful what you put out there. And I always wanted to have a YouTube channel when I was, working my 9 to 5, but there's no moonlighting. You cannot you cannot go on the internet and promote sales while you're doing the same thing for another company. So a lot of us salespeople, I'm sure we're looking on the internet and we're like, what are they saying? And I have to speak for this. I will say that I worked for a highly regulated industry. And any sales trainer that worked in a highly regulated industry like finance, banking, telecom, medicine, we have to go through so much training just so the company won't get in trouble. Okay. And those trainers are probably some of the best trainers that you will meet on the universe. I mean, anyone who's worked in pharmaceutical as sales trainer, for a sales company as a trainer, anyone who worked for a utility company, anyone that worked in the telecom industry, anyone who worked for just think of a gas company, or like think of your electric company. They go through a lot of training. Okay. I can tell you, I went through training ad nauseum. Okay. And there was always somebody coaching me. You need to know that. You need to know what industry do they have experience in. I sometimes see people talking on the internet who worked, let's say, for a gym company, or they sold AC vac, and they're thinking the same sales process that I learned or that I mastered selling gym memberships or selling HVAC, equipment, whatever it is the exact same sales process that I can teach everyone. No, that doesn't work that way. There's a process for each industry. And you see, if someone didn't go through certification, if someone, didn't get the proper training, they're going to mislead you. Okay. And I don't want to mislead you. Okay. And any tip that I give to you, test it and see if it works. But you got to give it time to test out the principle. Okay. Don't take my word for it. So with that said, if you have a sales team, all right, and you want help with your sales team, so that way they're not using outdated, aggressive sales techniques, I would love to connect with you to learn more about the help that you need. You can reach me at sellingwithsabine@gmail.com. Okay, that's simply the name of this channel. If you find me on YouTube, or if you find me on YouTube, or maybe if you're finding me on Substack, and I might change the name of my Substack, it's sellingwithsabine@gmail.com. Just send me that email and tell me what your needs are, and I can work with you. With that said, I've trained a lot of people. I would say from 1997 to possibly 2003, about 20,000 people. That's roughly about 1,000 people a year. And you have to keep in mind, I'm going to this retailer, this call center, and they have hundreds of people in that call center. And sometimes I'm training 99 people a day, an hour per session. So I've also trained new hires, so through a whole 4-week curriculum. So I've done a lot of training from 4 weeks to 1 hour to 1.5 hours to 50 minutes. I've done it all. So I hope that you come with me for the journey. Please share with your family members, particularly those who have businesses or would be entrepreneurs and thinking about going into business. They're going to have to sell, they're going to have to pitch, and they're going to have to understand the environment that they're pitching into. I'm so thankful that you joined me. Until next time, have a great day. You can also catch me on Apple, Spotify, a lot of the places that you listen to your podcast. I'll be there under Selling with Sabine. Have a great day, everyone. Toodles.
I'm on to on my ear. Selling with Sabine. Up onto the roof. Blessings must ignite, and dreams move from we fly. In the sales game was soaring my own mind. Listen up, let me tell you about a podcast. Selling with Sabine, my tips to broadcast. If you wanna up your game and find your skills, the show's gonna give you all the sales skills. From Lagos to Accra, chatting new terrain, building empires in the sales domain. Not just elevate the game. Negotiating deals with finesse and flair. Selling with Sabine with the perfect pair. Strategies revealed in the market square. Sales wisdom flows like we can't compare. Closing deals with ease, success we declare. Selling with Sabine helps us to close those with ease.